Someone's a little wet behind the gills. This is your spooky spot on the Jada Toys Universal Monsters, the creature from the Black Lagoon. The Universal Monsters have finally been made into 6-inch scale figures. Jada presents the creature from the Black Lagoon based on the classic 1954 film. He is fully articulated and comes with interchangeable heads and several accessories. The creature from the Black Lagoon is the last of the 4 figures that Jada Toys released of this wave. And being that he is the last figure that we've also had a look at, it gives me then the chance to be able to bring in the other figures so you can see the difference of sizes from the creature to the other figures. In the last review, we had a look at the Bride of Frankenstein, although they never really shared a screen time together. There he is next to Frankenstein's monster, and last and certainly not least, here he is next to Dracula. Let's move everything over at least so you guys can get a better idea. I guess we probably could, well, we ultimately have done that. We've put them in proper size. Well, you know what, we'll put Dracula right here, Bride of Frankenstein right there. That gives us then the shortest of figure all the way up to the highest, tallest figure. That's Frankenstein's monster. Creature from the Black Lagoon, as you can see, is a little bit taller than Dracula, but he's still a little bit shorter than Frankenstein, who is the tallest of the 4 figures in this set. Consistently, Jada Toys hasn't skimped in the accessory department for any of the Universal Monster figures that we've looked at so far, and I'd be happy to report as well that Gillman here, the creature from the Black Lagoon, is no exception to that. Looking at the accessories he comes included with, starting first, I want to introduce you to his girlfriend. This is Annette. Nice enough gal, but a relationship he often felt trapped in. It's a horrible joke. The net, as a purpose it serves certainly as a net, it traps things. It's a stretchier material that you can use and then drape it over top of the figure's body. And I guess if you want to trap the creature, you can do it that way. Although, to be honest, it does mask a lot of the great sculpting and paint work that Jada Toys put into the figure. I would really never display him with the net on his body. I probably could even use it for another figure. But at least I like the fact that they include something like that, even if it's not something I would probably end up using. The figure also comes included with a harpoon gun. Molded here in a softer gray plastic, with only a little bit of black actually added to the handle portion, and I guess the undercarriage of the harpoon gun. Now, he does have the means to hold this, though not with the hands that are currently in the sockets of his forearms. Luckily, though, at least they included this hand to hold it. And I know what you're thinking. There's no way he's going to be able to hold that. Look at the size of the grip. Well, actually, if you take the handle, put it in, and you line up the pointer finger, it sits rather nicely actually inside where the trigger is, to the point where it's not going to be going anywhere. It's sort of weird to see a hand this size being able to hold a handle that small. But yet it manages to accomplish that. I think I probably will end up popping out the hand that of course corresponds with this thumb. And I think I'm going to replace this hand later on and have it maybe displayed with a harpoon gun, because it's just too cool to leave off. The figure also comes included with the fossilized hand. Usually when it comes to the creature figures being released, they always include like a fossilized hand. I'm glad to see, at least for a smaller scale 6-inch format, that Jada Toys actually did include the fossilized hand. Again, it's softer plastic, lighter of a color because, of course, it's now fossilized rather than the actual skin. It's a really nice showpiece. Even if it's not really something that's going to go with the figure, or at least on the figure, it could be something that certainly could be displayed along next to the figure, maybe by its feet, for example. And then the last thing we're going to have a look at is his alternate head sculpt. But maybe just before doing that, we may detain looking at the head sculpt, because I want to certainly pick up the figure first, and I want to show you what his stock head sculpt looks like first. Not to give anything away too early, but I actually prefer this head sculpt of the 2 that he gets. Well, you know what, actually. Me saying that, it would be probably best to bring the other head sculpt in so you can see the difference between the 2. Not much different in the eyes, not much certainly different in the gills, but the open and the closed mouth is definitely the 2 differences between the head sculpts. And while I like the idea of the open mouth, I mean, this is certainly a possible head sculpt. It's certainly a suitable head sculpt if you want to display him with it. But again, I just like the open mouth a little bit more. I find it has a lot more character. Speaking of a lot more too, you may also be able to notice too that the one that's stock, the one with the open mouth, has more of a shinier paint. You see there's more of a gloss to it. I guess it's emerged from the swamps, whereas this one's been on land for a little bit longer. I do, again, like this one a little bit more. But to change out the heads, you sort of have to deal with the same longer peg as what we got with Dracula. Remember, we did the review of the Dracula. Just wiggle the head off the ball peg post, and you'll see right away you're dealing with a much longer peg to contend with. And it's probably because of the fact that the socket of the head is a little bit further in there that they had to compensate by making a longer post. Again, take the swappable head sculpt, a little bit of pressure, and while you're putting a little bit of pressure here, you're also probably going to be putting a lot of pressure right here, as it's going to be leaving marks in your skin as you're putting your fingers against these fins sticking out from his body. But that's what the alternate head sculpt looks like. Again, quite the nice head sculpt, but I think I like this one just a little bit more. This one here. Maybe what we'll do is we'll stick with this head sculpt for the time being, and I'm sure at some point I'll probably pop this back and replace it with this one as for the possible permanent place for the way I'm going to display the figure on the shelf. We're going to move that head sculpt out of the way for the time being. We're going to look at the rest of the figure's body. First of all, I guess we can kind of go back to the face. A lot of nice greens working here. It really helps to bring the mold of the head sculpt out because you've got all this nice darker green, not to mention these kind of lighter, kind of an off beige color, not to mention all this nice yellow that they've put on the actual gills. It's a really nice head sculpt. And then, of course, the sculpting doesn't just stop there. When you look at the rest of his body, there's a lot of different textures that they've done here. Not only to the top of the torso, it's slightly more coarser, it's a little more smoother as we get to the abdomen area. The colors are similar to the rind of a watermelon. Darker and lighter greens happening here with some nice little speckling added in there as well. And again, it's a very much different surface texture than the top torso. It's a little bit coarser. He's got that additional texturing done down the sides of his arms, which again has some nice lighter and darker greens striped across it. And he has all these additional fins on his hands, the back of his torso, lower torso, and even going down his legs as well. He's got a few little parts that stick out from his skin. Very large hands, and I guess what we could also do too, I was already talking about the idea of swapping out the hands for the one that has the harpoon gun. Let's just remove the harpoon for right now. Now, because the thumbsies go in, we'll have to change this hand here. Just to show you quickly the difference between the two, this one has the fins, as you can see, in between each of the fingers. Whereas this one, for the obvious reason of having him holding the harpoon gun, really nice additional texturing on the inside here, he doesn't have the fins actually connecting the two. I guess the webbing, the hand webbing. We're going to go ahead and remove this hand for right now, just to reiterate the idea that these pegs are quite easy to remove actually. And then we're just going to replace it with the interchangeable hand, simply so I can actually show you. Just pop that in place. Just quickly get, once again, the harpoon gun. And we'll just fit that around the pointer finger. So you can see he actually does hold the harpoon gun. May even bring that back in the rotisserie end of things. We'll be looking at him in final looks. Before we actually get to the articulation, the last look at the figure's body. I really like the sculpting of his feet. Of course, it has to be a lot larger looking sized feet. And as you can see, they're flatter on the bottom with some provided peg holes, even though these figures don't have display stands. This is actually one thing I wish that Jada Toys would have done with the Universal Monster figures, is include display stands which would have had the Universal Monster logo on the top. Just an extra added bonus. Still, again, I love the accessories they come included with, but just the idea of having dedicated display stands with Universal Monsters on top would have been a nice finishing touch to these figures. And we're spinning it one last time so you can see it all. Really nice. Happy with the coloring that they used for it. The lighter and the darker green works so well here on Gillman. So let's have a look at the articulation on this guy. His head rotates all the way around. Despite the fact he has so much additional sculpting on the side of his head, it actually doesn't limit what you can do with the head rotation. So it rotates all the way around. It hinges up just a little bit, hinges down a lot more, and back and forth on the head as well. Upper torso is on a ball joint. This guy also benefits, too, from having a lower torso ball joint. I like the fact that they did do that. For the arms, now, here's where a little more of the limitations come in. The arms can get to about here. I know you may have even blinked and missed that. The arms, you can go from here to here, and that's it. Unfortunately, just due to the circumstances, the way they have to sculpt the shoulders, there's so much texturing happening here that things get butted up real quick and real fast. Oh, actually... there we go. It was super, there we go, super tight. Let me correct myself by saying that. So instead of actually thinking he was a lot less articulated in the shoulders. Let me correct myself by saying he actually has almost a 90-degree angle bend. It was just really, really tight. I fought this so much prior to hitting record on the camcorder here. That's a lot easier now. I guess if you have this figure for yourself and there's resistance moving the arm out, I mean, I can feel it still super tight. You can always submerge this in hot water, or you can also take a hairdryer, just take a few passes for it. But again, nice to see that they actually did incorporate articulation. I thought there was going to be a lot more limitations just to the way that the shoulder was sculpted, but not the case. Happy to report. The hands rotate, or the arms rotate all the way around. There's a bicep swivel there. Double hinge on the elbow. That was easy enough to remove or move. And then you can move also the hands all the way around. When it comes to the legs split out. You can go forward and back on the legs. There is a swivel, and a nice hidden swivel too. It's actually underneath one of the little flaps of the, I guess, the fins, or I guess the scales on his body. Really like the way they've done that. Double hinge on the knee. And then when it comes to the feet, you can move the feet back and forth this way. And there's also the ankle pivot too. I'm so happy that those arms moved, because I got to tell you, prior to, again, hitting the record button, I fought and fought thinking that those arms weren't going to move. I guess it just took a little bit more determination, a little bit more pressure and force on my part. Eventually I was able to get those to move. And then one last time to bring in the other Universal Monster figures that we've had a look at. Dracula, Bride of Frankenstein. Again, just get her to stand properly. Here we go. And last and certainly not least, there's Frankenstein in the background. Still, there's certainly an opportunity, I feel, where Jada Toys could expand out the Universal Monsters brand. I mean, obviously, there's still like characters like the Mummy, the Werewolf, Invisible Man would be a nice touch as well. I hope it doesn't just start and stop with this first wave of 4 figures. Since then, though, Jada Toys has announced that they are going to be doing the more elaborate, which I did mention in the Frankenstein's monster review. They're going to be doing a more elaborate Frankenstein release that's going to come with the operating table. But I hope, again, after that, Jada Toys are going to want to continue this brand. And the more and more Universal Monsters that they're going to release, the more and more I'm going to want to pick up and add to my collection. Now wrapping up things with a creature from the Black Lagoon, I just want to reiterate again that I hope that Jada Toys does consider to expand this line beyond just the 4 figures that we've had a look at. I have certainly enjoyed having a look at all the 4 figures, with some personal favorites, I think, being Dracula #1, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Bride of Frankenstein, and Frankenstein being in that order of my personal favorites. I really like the look of Creature from the Black Lagoon. Even though I'm not using the head sculpt I would probably display him on the shelf with, I would certainly like to expand a concept and an idea that I mentioned in an earlier review. If Jada Toys already has these molds at their disposal, I really hope at some point they're going to consider releasing these guys as black and whites. I mean, the color treatment is nice and fine, but to be more akin to their silver screen counterparts, I would love to see what they could look like in black and white. Especially like the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein, I think would look really nice in an all black and gray or grayscale treatment. I hope that's certainly something that Jada Toys will consider. What do you guys think of this line of Universal Monsters now having wrapped up all 4 figure reviews? Let me know down below in the comments section how you would rank the figures. Which one is your personal favorite? Which is your least favorite? I always like reading your comments down below. And hey now, if you are new to this channel and you're just hopefully enjoying the content that's been coming out on a regular basis, make sure you do a couple of things for yourself. Hit that subscribe button down below, turn on the bell notification, and make sure, yes, you're coming back with ghoulish peepers peeled. Because even though we have wrapped up things with the Universal Monsters, there's definitely going to be a lot more spookerific reviews coming your way during this month. I've usually called Spottober. It's not really a month. I know that's the running joke on this channel. It's not really, there's no real month called Spottober. But we can certainly have a little bit more fun, as there's certainly a lot more days left in October that we can have a look at spooky-related items. And definitely a lot more will be coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.